All right, welcome everyone. Shawn Benson here, coming in live to Wing Chun Talk. I have a Sifu from the UK dropping into today with us to share some information and get to know him a little bit better. Lewis Arnold, welcome. Thanks for being here.
No, thank you. Thank you for inviting me on.
I'm glad you're here, and it looks sunny where you're at, so I'm a little jealous. I'm in the basement here.
We don't get it all the time. It's only going to last for a few days, and then it'll be rain. So don't be too jealous. I'm sure you live in a very nice part of the world.
It's sunny today. I'm just everything's set up down here. So yeah. But welcome. Thanks for doing this. I really appreciate you spending some time with me.
No, thank you.
So to kind of get started, I just wanted to jump right in, really, and kind of get how you got into Wing Chun. We chatted previously, and we talked for half an hour, and I could have talked way longer with you. You're
of course.
Yeah.
If you catch me on the subject of Wing Chun, I could talk all day. So, and actually, I think a lot of the time that's what all my students sometimes say to me, like, okay, that's enough. That's enough information.
Right.
How I got into Wing Chun? Well, I mean, it started. When I was a young. When I was young, a teenager, a family friend of mine, he used to teach Wing Chun, and because of that, I sort of was drawn towards it. But he didn't teach children, so I was probably only 13 at the time, and I think his rule was he wouldn't teach you like anyone under 16. So he said, "Come back to me in a few years," and of course, life gets in the way. You start. You got friends and stuff like that, and you're sort of interested in going out and meeting girls and stuff like that. So I think I didn't go back to him until I was about 18, and by that point he had actually took over to just teaching special forces.
Oh, wow.
So he didn't want any civilians. He was only teaching the British special forces at the time. So that kind of left me in a hole. I'd done boxing and other bits. Going through my childhood and stuff like that, but I was kind of looking for that. Never really found it. Couldn't find anyone around locally, and then I think at some point I was working my job, and I think I just sort of realized there was a certain stress level to what I was doing, and I wanted a bit of a vent. And so I typed into Google one day and realized that one of his students was then teaching. So I got into it like that, and I stayed with him for quite a few years, and that was under the they were under the Samuel Kwok Association, so they were under that sort of lineage, Ip Chung, Ip Ching, Sam Kwok. So I trained under that lineage for quite a few years, got up to Black Sash, and then I sort of ended up, as you do, you start sort of like looking at other things, especially with YouTube these days. You can see so much information and different lineages and different Sifus. And one of my Sihing at the time, he directed me towards Sifu Gary Lam. And I borrowed his DVD that he lent me, and I think I watched it. I think I didn't give it back to him for 6 months. I just kept watching it over and over and over again. And in the end, I sort of went down that route. And so that's how I ended up getting into Wing Chun. The lineage change was due to other sort of reasons. That was mainly to do with the information that Sifu Gary was giving. And he really did sort of like make it logical. So that was predominantly the thing for me was when he explained something to you. You just think, oh, of course, yeah, that makes sense. So it makes it understandable and logical, rather than there being sort of too much mysticalness about stuff. Sifu Gary's not like that. He's very much, it has to work on the bare bones, and if it doesn't, then we got to strip it back and find out why. And I like that approach. He has a fighter's approach to Wing Chun, because that's kind of like, so that's what drew me towards that lineage in the end, was that someone that's done it and someone that's used it. So but Wing Chun for me was mainly an escape rather than rather than anything else. It was kind of like just one of those things. I enjoyed the art form. I realized that to be a boxer, you had to be in great physical shape, and a lot of your sort of skill or how good you are depends on your physique and how much you train. And I knew that I couldn't commit to sort of doing a 6-mile run every single day and keeping that kind of thing. So I enjoy boxing, but Wing Chun was my passion because there's more art to it, in my opinion. So for me, that's what drew me towards that. And but you know, people start for different reasons. Some people was for self-defense. Other people, you know, they just want to socialize and meet people. So, and I like that you get a real broad spectrum of people who sort of join it, and for different reasons. And that's one of the main things I ask my students all the time when they first start. I said, you know, what do you want to get from it? What are you looking to gain? And it's interesting because predominantly most people go, oh, self-defense, but you strip that back after a while and say, well, you know, you now know how to defend yourself. Why are you still learning it? Why are you still pushing yourself? And then they sort of say, oh, well, okay, yeah, I like the art form, or I want to perfect this, or I want to. So, you know, people like that sort of thing. I enjoy it.
Nice. So do you keep asking kind of as they level up? Like, I mean, what keeps you?
Yeah, it's one of my go-to questions. And I ask the class, even guys that have been doing it longer than me. I mean, actually, a lot of my old Sihing come across when I come back from Sifu Gary's the first time. Obviously, you know, one of them I used to go jogging with on a regular basis, and he sort of phoned me up a couple of days after I got back and said, oh, you want to go out on a jog? I said, yeah, no worries. I was a little bit overweight being in America and eating these huge portions. In the UK, we don't get that.
I thought you'd be super fit after going like full-time training there. Like,
yeah, but the thing is, you know, it's the last couple of days in America, and I you know, ever since I turned 30 a few years back, I look at a burger now and I seem to put on weight. So it's like it's one of those things. And so I mean, it is one of those questions. But yeah, he met up with me, and we you know, he obviously wanted to touch hands, and that was sort of like what he wanted to do. So we done that, and he was amazed with what I had learned. And so then that was it. He sort of like one phones the other one, and then I get a couple of phone calls saying, oh, do you want to meet up? So in the end, I ended up sort of meeting up with all the Sihing and training with them, and they just wanted to learn something new, you know, so they come across with me, and now they're my students, and I've got quite a few of my old Sihing from my old club and now my students, so they've been doing it longer than me. But, you know, that's the thing with what we learn with Sifu Gary and the Gary Lam system, is he has a system, and the system is very, very good. So it's important for me to ask the students at different stages, what are you doing it for? Because, you know, you want to be able to help a student to get out of something what he wants to get out. You know, so if he or she wants to get something out of it, what are they wanting to get out of it? If they just want to get a socialization, then that's fine, you know, and we accommodate that. But if they really want to get the high level skill, then we work them a little bit more, and I push them a little bit further. And we you know, it's not sometimes what they're doing, you know, we just push that a little bit further. Oh, it's not good enough. It's not good enough, you know, and make them really go to work on site. So, I mean, this is something that Gary done to me. You know, you'd be on the dummy, and he'd just watch it, and he's like, keep going. And you'd sort of spend the whole day just working the dummy, you know, and we're talking over there. Training starts at, we start about 9 a.m., finish about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and then you come, or sometimes later, sometimes a little bit earlier, and then you'd come back to it about 5 p.m. and you train till 9 p.m. So, and he'd just keep you on the dummy the whole time, you know. It's like, and by the end of that day or a couple of days like that, you look at the dummy and think, I don't want to touch that thing again for the next 3-4 months. You just
yeah.
But that's the only way to get skill, you know, is to really work on science non-stop until you crack it. So,
right.
But yeah, so in terms of students, I mean, it's a fine line. You have to know which ones you can push and which ones you can't push. Some just don't like it, and then they leave if you push too hard, and others really want that. So
totally. Like, I mean, but do you think you kind of hurt feelings, or is it just they have other like reasons for being there and they just don't, or they don't want to be corrected? Like, I mean,
some people don't. Some people hate being corrected. Some people hate. I mean, to be honest with you, I like it. For me, it's one of those things, and that's why I go back to LA a lot, because while I'm being corrected, I know that I've still got stuff I'm working on. So this is why with the titles of Sifu and stuff like that, I'm still a student first and foremost. So for me, I'm still training, and I always will be. That's the thing. For me, there's not a finish line. So. And I think if people can keep that idea, you can always make something better. So even if you most people, they're like, oh yeah, I know the dummy form. Just go work on it, keep working on it, because you might know it, but do you really, can you say 100% that everything's perfect? And if you can't, then you've still got something you can improve on. And if you can say 100% perfect, I don't believe you, because
totally.
it's not true. And to me, that's what, it's like anything. I think when I spoke to you before, I sort of told you the comparisons we like to sort of make, and it's to do like even when you look at a tradesman, you can have a tradesman that knows how to do something and he's all right at it. And then you can get a guy that's amazing at something. This is what we're sort of, you want that higher, like, I don't want to use the term mastery because I think it's very, but that's the goal. The goal is mastery. Whether it's achievable or not is something totally different, but that is the goal, is to, but not all students want that. So that's what I mean. We have to work out who wants that and who doesn't want that.
Right.
That's what we're looking for. In the Gary Lam lineage, we talk about upgrade a lot. So we always talk about upgrading. And the goal every time is to upgrade your skill.
Okay, gotcha.
So that's the goal.
Right. Yeah, it's funny you say that because I was doing just like a little video series on how to improve at most anything. And I said the same thing. Like, I did something, I Googled something, how to do something, watched a video, figured out how to do it. But I can't even remember what I videoed and what the task was. So it's just like, I can do it, but am I a master? Am I really good at it? Could I do it repetitively over and over well? Probably not, right? So I'd have to go back, relearn it, and then...
Yeah, it's like anything. I think they say, like, I know the numbers contested a little bit, but I think they say 10,000 times to mastery or something like that. So, if you take a basic technique like a Paxao, and then you do that 10,000 times. That's a lot of times, to try and get that number. And I think they say it takes roughly 10 years. Now, I'm not saying you can be a master in 10 years, but I mean, to get really good at something is that sort of 10-year period. And with diligent work, of course. And so for me, in the Gary Lam system, for instance, when I first went over to do the level 1 with Sifu Gary. I looked up at the board and there was only sort of 16 techniques on the level 1 on his syllabus. And I was like, well, that's not going to take very long, because from the lineage that I was in before, we'd have like an A4 sheet for each grading. There was sort of like, a massive amount to learn on there. And then when I realized, actually, just with this one sheet, there was years of learning in that alone, and it's the attention to detail is more important than well, it's that same thing. It's quality over quantity. So it's like Gary. Sifu Gary will say a lot of the time. He will say, it's not just about knowing every technique. You have to get good at it. So I think, like, even when you learn his system, he'll say, "Oh, you know it now," but it doesn't mean you're good. Now you have to put the work in. And you have to learn it and really get good at it. So just because you know a technique doesn't mean you're good at it. But you get it quite a lot with students. They learn a drill, and then they go, "Okay, what's next?" And you're like, "Well, I'll tell you what's next when you're ready to learn what's next." And that's not me being arrogant. That's because I want their skill. I want their skill to develop. And so for me and my students, I always push them that little bit further in terms of. I want to see that got everything out of a drill before we teach them the next drill. And Gary Lam's system is kind of taught in that way. So it's taught like, you'll learn this and you'll stay on that drill until you're ready for the next one. And we can see that you've got the understanding of it and you can do it. And, you know, so some people don't stick that out. I mean, and some people, they don't enjoy that. They want to learn everything real quick. Right. Modern day society, that's what we're like. You know, we want everything now, and we're impatient for information. But unfortunately, anything that's worth or anything that's skillful, highly skillful, takes time. And
yeah, I totally agree.
But you know, I mean,
let's circle back a little bit, because I mean, you spent a long period in a previous lineage, but then you went out to LA, and that was compressed, correct? Like, I mean,
yeah. So I only in the previous lineage, I only went. You know, the guy ran 3 classes a week, 2-hour sessions, and I would meet up with a couple of the Sihing outside of class. So we do sort of 6 to 8 training hours a week tops.
Yeah.
And then, the baptism of fire, as it was, at Gary Lam's backyard. Through Gary Lam's backyard. That was, that was an experience, because I'd never pushed my body that hard before. Just the acclimatization, you know, you get out there, it's hot. And the training, you know, I mean, they train, like I told you, the hours like 9 a.m. till sort of like 2 o'clock. Sometimes it finishes midday. Sometimes it pushes a little bit further. Depends depends on the sort of dynamic in the yard, who's there, who's sort of thing. So, you know, we push hard and train hard, and then you train in the evening, of course. And you're really just living and breathing Wing Chun. And that is, that's a brilliant experience. Yeah, and I've done that several times. I mean, I think I've got another visit planned in January. Touch wood that all this situation with the coronavirus disappears and we're allowed to travel. So I've got another 6-week block booked in then. So I'm heading back out to LA for 6 weeks training.
Nice. Is that typically the time frame that you go for, is 6 weeks, or what's
well, yeah, I mean, some guys actually, it's amazing, because the first time I went out there, and it's a real mix of guys that turn up, and you know, and ladies as well. But the guys that were staying in the backyard, because you know, we stay at Gary's house. So I was living with Gary for the first time. I think I went out there for 5 wees. And that was a push, because I'd never been at home. You know, I've got a wife and 2 children. I've never been away for that long.
For sure, yeah.
And that was quite a push. So I think the next time I went back, I went for a month. And then I went for the long trips. Then I went for 2 6-week blocks. So I sort of 6 weeks, come home for a couple of weeks, then went back for 6 weeks.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, that was a hard one, that one, because you sort of like, you got home and then you thought, oh, I'm going back out there in a couple of weeks. So it was like, oh wow, this is
what made you go back to back there? Like, was it just timing or just?
Well, like, I booked a flight and I booked a trip, and then I think. I kind of like spoke to Sifu and I said, oh, look, I'm coming out for 6 weeks. And he said, you should try coming for longer. And I went, well, I don't think I can push that. And then I think he planted that seed in my head. And the next thing is, all of a sudden, I booked another 6-week block. And then I was like, crept into the lounge and sort of said to my wife, listen, I might have done something. And she just went, what? I think, you know, she
must really love you. That's awesome. That's awesome.
Well, really doesn't like me being at home, one or the other. I don't know.
Yeah, one or the other, right?
But I mean, I'm not in the house quite a lot anyway, because I'm always out teaching and training. So actually, with the lockdown, this is the most I've ever been at home, really. I mean, you know, so for me, the thing of going to LA was really, I mean. It was to try and get that consolidated time in. So originally I only wanted a Wing Chun holiday. My old Sihing in the previous lineage, they had all been out to Hong Kong, and unfortunately I couldn't go on that trip. And so that was in the old lineage, the old school that I was in. And they all went out and they come back and they were all so excited and buzzing. They were sort of like, oh, it was amazing. They'd done this and they'd been to see all these different guys and train with loads of different Sifus. And I was like, oh, right. Jealous a little bit, but I was sort of like, oh, no, I really want to do that. But the thought of going to Hong Kong on my own, not speaking the language and stuff like that. And I thought, well, and I looked at the money, and to be honest, it was nearly the same money to go to Gary for a month as it was to go to Hong Kong for a couple of weeks and live and train and stay there. Right. So for me, the decision was quite a clear-cut one. I had always wanted to go see Sifu Gary and train with him. So I took that leap and I went. And like I say, I mean, he was very humble, lovely guy. Picked me up from the airport. Wow. Quite unassuming, and going back to the thing of skill, when we were talking about skill, the one thing that amazed me was how easy he makes it look. And when we talk about skill, and like even what we talk about, like a tradesman, a good tradesman makes something look so easy, and you try doing it, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, I can't do that.
Fumbling this and dropping that.
Exactly. And that's exactly what it's like with him. You just look at him and he's going, oh, it's easy, just do this, do that. And then you're going, oh, what? And it's all clunky and you can't get those movements. And but he is such a lovely, kind guy, and he's very generous with the information as well. So you get a lot of info on forms and just general skill and little tips and hints and but he makes you work hard. I mean, I've seen guys try to sit down before, and he don't do that. Don't do that. That's not good. He's like, oh, you're lazy. You've come all this way. Get up, work, keep going. So he drives you. He really does drive you. But for me, the main thing that kept me going back was, and it's the skill that you see. Not just in him, it's the skill you see in all the high-level students there. So for me, it kind of like made that, it sold itself to me in the way. So when you look and you see, well, actually, like, this guy's level 2 and this guy's level 3 and this guy's level 2 and this guy's level 3. And, and there was a lot of them and they were all good. And I thought, the system works. He's got something here that really works. So, and I'd been to travel to see other schools in the UK, and obviously it would have been easier just to go to another school in the UK to keep training. But of course, for me, it was like, well, go as close to the water source as you can get. And so that's what led me to Gary anyway. So,
kind of to not sidetrack here a little bit, but like when you were looking at going to train the Sifu Gary Lam School Club and do some full-time training, did you have a thought that you would take this forward and come back, like you're gonna go through his system then? And
no, not at all. So for me, originally it was a Wing Chun holiday. I think for my previous teacher, I had my previous Sifu, I had helped teach his classes for him because I was one of the senior students. And so when he went away on holiday, or if he had anything important to do, I would take the classes and I would teach. So sometimes he'd leave me for a couple of weeks and I'd be teaching all his classes. And but teaching had never really crossed my mind in that way. And it was only something that I think, when I was at Sifu Gary's and I was a couple of days away from leaving. And he sort of said, oh, what are you going to do now then when you go home? And I said, well, I don't know. I haven't really got any training partners. And he said, well, start teaching then. Open your own school and start teaching. And he kind of like, well, okay, that's not a bad idea. I'm sure I've got a few friends that I can get outside. And that's kind of like the birth of it. So that was where it come from. And then I ended up going back. So I think I'd done my level 1 in my first trip, and then I spent just a year solidly just working on that with a couple of guys, and I was teaching at the same time, but I was spending a lot of time with I'm very lucky my brother does Wing Chun as well, and So he's one of those annoying people that picks things up very quickly.
Oh yes, yeah, I know
so
some of those people.
I'd show him a technique and he'd be like instantly able to do it, and I'm going, hold on, wait a second, that took me like a month to learn that. So he's a very good training partner. So we spend a lot of time. Oops, sorry, that light's coming through that. We spend a lot of time training and going through different sort of drills. So we spent that year doing that, and then I went back and done my level 2, and now I'm into my level 3 and starting looking at the level 4 syllabus as well. So so I kind of like hook, line, and sinker straight into it, really. Nice. But there was never an intention to teach.
No,
it just kind of fell into.
Okay.
And you know, the thing is, like a lot of stuff, Gary will say you never really learn. And actually, I'll say my other teacher said this as well. You don't learn until you teach, really. You don't really start learning until you teach, because having to teach makes you reiterate in your own mind. You're sort of like, and they might ask a question that you've not even thought of. So it makes your knowledge and your understanding go deeper, because I'm sure you've had the same thing when your Sifu would have said to you, oh, can you show him this drill? And he'd ask you a question and you go, wait, I don't know. I never thought of that. And then you'd have to go back to the Sifu and ask. So it makes you really understand the drill or the technique that you're talking about. And so teaching is, sorry, that light is, it makes you really understand. So I'm glad it pushed me down that road, because it's totally changed my perspective on Wing Chun, and having to adapt it for different body types as well. So it really makes you think about stuff, because you get a small framed lady or a small frame guy, and if you put them up against someone who's big, a lot of the time techniques just won't work for those people, and so you have to look at it and think, well, why is it not working, and adapt it for them, and maybe they need a little bit of something put in there. So that's an important part to learn yourself, because it helps you identify what could be wrong with you against someone else or something like that. So for me, if you don't learn to teach, or if you don't teach or share the knowledge, you won't learn it. You won't really learn it. So you have to. I think everyone has to do that. They have to be given with the knowledge and answer questions for people. And if you don't know, you have to admit that to yourself and think, well, I don't know that. And a couple of times I'll get a student who asks me a question, and I'm like thinking, I don't really know the answer to that. And I end up, I'll email Gary, and I'll record a little video and I'll send it to him saying, he's asked me this and I don't really understand. So for me, it's just about knowledge, just gaining more and more knowledge, and trying to apply that into what I'm teaching and what I'm doing. Wow. So it's important. But anyone that, pretends to be all knowing is not, it's not
troublesome there, isn't it? Yeah. Someone, but I mean, it seems like you got a good Sifu in Sifu, Gary Lam there. Like, he seems to be open and because
that's all you need really, is someone's willing to show you the right way and to point you in the right direction. So
is that how you run your club? I mean, you're under his banner, I guess, right? Like you're an affiliate, or how do you? So
when you reach a level 3, you're allowed to open your own school with his permission, but we don't pay any affiliation fees or nothing like that. We don't. There's nothing like that. We just as long as you're teaching his syllabus. Or his system, and you can add to the system as well. So some of the guys, they've added their own sort of stuff in, experience and bits that they've added in over the years. For me, I teach mine exactly the same way as it's taught to me, so I don't alter anything, because for me, I just think, like, if it's not broke, don't fix it, kind of thing. So I just want to teach it exactly the same way, and maybe in a few years or so, I may end up adding a few bits in, but for me, I haven't seen anything that's missing. So I don't see the need to do that. But yeah, apart from that, I think one of the requirements is that you go back on a regular basis and just make sure you're keeping your skill level up.
Yeah, totally. I mean, totally makes sense. I do want to kind of touch on how you run. So, because like I've seen some of his YouTube videos, I've seen the backyard. I mean, you've been there, you've done it. But he has a whiteboard. I mean, like, do you implement theory into your?
Yeah. Oh, massively. Yeah.
Okay.
The theory behind it, learning, and you can obviously buy Gary's DVDs. They're available, Crane's Production and stuff like that. So you can get them from there, and they actually a lot of that's on there. So even the higher level stuff, it's. He talks about it and explains it because knowledge is half of what you're doing. If you don't know what you're doing, it's very difficult to you don't know why you're doing something, or you don't know how you're doing something. It's very difficult to make sure you're doing it right. So the knowledge is a massive part of it. So when we talk about skill is obviously the thing of being able to use it and do it. And that just comes through drilling. But to know, so we talk about, in Gary's system, he'd talk about 3 center lines. And, some people, one center line, and I think in the practical Wing Chun, those guys have 5 center lines they talk about. Okay. So, Gary's theory is very, very straightforward, and it's very logical. So, that's a main part of our sort of teaching is to use the theory based side of stuff as well to explain to the students what they should be doing and why they're doing it. Without going into too much detail, Gary will talk about using angles and positioning, and we actually look at the angles. We draw them out and we show people that first movement, step this angle, the second movement here, third angle here, and it's really just a basis for them to understand. A bit of fighting strategy. And this is something that's in the Gary Lam system is fighting strategy, fighting philosophy. So he talk a lot about the distance between you and the opponent, which I feel is lacking in a lot of lineages. They go straight to chi sao, and they don't really know how to bridge that gap between the two. They never work on that. And so what happens is you see these videos where you get a Wing Chun guy against the boxer, and because he's never really worked on bridging that gap, he's stuck out at that distance, and he's at the boxer's mercy because the boxer works that distance, kickboxer works that distance. So the theory side of things is a very, very important part of it, is learning, what dangers are present at what time. So with a kickboxer or a taekwondo guy, I don't want to be at kicking range because he's happy at that range and I'm not. But you have to know how to get in, and this is one of the things that Gary, Sifu Gary will talk about. Is he will talk about a price that you have to pay to get in someone's range, and that when you're not so skilled, that could be a broken jaw, But as you get better, there might only be a split lip, but he's quite realistic and he'll tell you the truth. If you're going to fight, you're going to get hit. That's why I don't like all this mystical sort of side of stuff you get sometimes, where they pretend that you get some lineages out there where they pretend that they're gonna be able to penetrate opponents' defenses and they're not going to get a mark on them. It doesn't. That only works if you're fighting someone that has no fighting skill at all. If you're fighting someone that is a fighter as well, you're going to get hit. So it's like Mike Tyson and Evander Holyfield. They're both, they were both 2 of the top boxers. They still took punches. So
right.
You've got to be a realist about what is going to happen. So that's a lot to do with what we study. Obviously, just to do with fighting philosophy and strategy and skill in terms of of actual the properties of fighting. Okay. So what someone's energy is, how they're driving forwards. So I see a lot of stuff where you see a demonstration and the guy just steps forwards with a punch and it's left out and it's just a basic one.
It's hanging there. Let me play with that punch.
Yeah, and you see the guy and he do 20 strikes and you're like, well, what about the other hand?
Right.
And the answer for a lot of guys is always the same thing. It will be, oh yeah, but this happens so fast. And you just look and think, so is his other punch. That's going to happen the instant. It's going to be a bang, like, you know. So what you have to look at is a realistic thing. Was the second punch is already coming. So as the first punch is hitting, the second punch is already hitting. So, you know, one of the biggest realizations for me was that we train in a more realistic way, that we have to deal with multiple punches by the opponent, and you get a lot of randomized stuff as well, you know. So not with beginners, we keep it nice, straight, simple, basics. But as you progress, you're looking for them to throw in a bit more randomized stuff. You know, you want to see some hooks coming off of the opponent and stuff like that, and some more unorthodox stuff. But distance control is one of those things that we work on a lot as well. So, you know, in Gary's lineage, or Sifu Gary's lineage, we talk about first distance, second distance, and closing distance. And that's basically, you're really looking at, you know, where on the arm are you intercepting the opponent? If I'm intercepting you on the wrist, I can't step straight in and punch you because I haven't penetrated your defense deep enough to get in there and hit. So you have to work your way to the opponent. You can't just go from right out on the limit of your range and go straight into the closing range. And if you can, it's because you're so much better than the opponent. So right. These are sort of things you have to play with, and you have to start to, you know, it's great. You learn the basics, you learn the drills, and then you've got to start to sort of dissect what you're doing and think, okay, how would this work if this guy's stepping in like this? How would this work if this guy's stepping backwards a bit? Because you've got to make that range up. You know, I see a lot of stuff where you see them hitting, and they're at a range where, you know, they would be touching the opponent. That's not economy of motion, because we don't just want to pepper the opponent. We want to make sure that those punches count for something. So that again is something that you know, people in our lineage we work on is the making sure that when you hit, you're delivering something. And, you know, Gary will talk about that in a few of his DVDs. You'll hear him say, you know, about people, and they hit the guy 10 times, and then the guy gets up and he goes, like, you know, go up and get over there, hit the wall bag. You know, you got to work on it, because obviously if you hit the guy 10 times and he's getting up, there's a problem with your technique. So, you know, so he's sort of, and that's what I mean by a fighter. He wants to see that real skill, and he wants to know that you can work it. And if you can't, then, you know, he'll highlight to you. He's got that sort of ability, and I'm trying to develop it slowly to be able to look at someone and go, you know, watch what they do, and then go, right, you need to work on that. You know, he's got that straight away. He'll pull you up on your bad points within a few seconds, and he'll send you off to work on them with some drills. And so for me, you know, the theory and the theory and the practical together are just as important. If you've only got practical and you've got no theory, it only works while it's in that environment. It only works in that training environment. But if you have a theory behind it, you know what's happening when it goes wrong, so you know how to fix it. You know how to get back on track. So that's the basis for the theory, anyway. Yeah,
that totally makes sense. So in your club, so we already talked about, you do the whiteboard theory. However you do it, if you have a certain time, or you just break it down maybe during a class just to help explain. Yeah. I mean, it depends. Sometimes it just depends on if they ask a question. Or if I see something going on that I don't like, or, you know, it's normally something you've told them 100 times before. And, you know, as a Sifu, I'm happy to do that. I'm happy to keep telling them until they get it. You know, so that's how we sort of work it. I don't, for instance, go, right, okay, we're going to do an hour of theory. I don't set it up like that, because it's not what the students want. For sure. But you'll get some students that will naturally gravitate towards you to ask questions, and you'll get others that are just happy to get on with the drills and they just want to work. So, you know, I don't make them all come over. I don't. So, okay, I'm going to explain something. Come over here. Some of them will just get on while I'm talking and I'm over at the whiteboard, and others will come over and gravitate towards listening to me. So it's just, for sure, it's that happy medium. I don't say, no, stop what you're doing, come here. I let them carry on. A full hold stop, right? A full stop. Like, let me explain something. And what about the fighting strategy? Like, how do you apply that in your club where it's controlled? Are you chi sawing, or is it
so predominantly what we the way that we work in the Gary Lam system is we don't spar straight away. We will later on, but we don't spar straight away. The reason being is because it's like watching someone box for the first time. They can learn all the jab, cross, hook, uppercut, 4 basic techniques. They learn against the punch bag. They start learning combinations. And then if they haven't done enough of it and they get put in the ring and they're not nurtured into it, what happens is they get punched in the face and it all goes out the window, and their big swinging arms come back and everything like that, and the breathing's all gone. Structure's gone, all the everything that you've worked on has gone out the window. So that's somewhat detrimental. I do think actually being punched in the face is quite I don't want to say good. It teaches you something.
Learning opportunity.
You want that in certain ways to learn how to deal with that adrenaline, to learn how to keep yourself calm. Right. Because of course, the first time you ever get punched in the nose, your eyes start watering, your breathing goes out the window, and so your body just goes into that sort of fight or flight sort of response and all that kind of sort of stuff. So you need to learn to deal with that, and sparring is definitely a good method for dealing with that. However, to start with, what we try to do is keep them predominantly based on the drills, and then we just sort of like up the ante a little bit, progress the drills. Maybe, for instance, like if I'm doing something with a pack sow, at first I'll keep the pack sow nice and reasonably controlled speed. And then I'll just open up on them a little bit and give them a little bit of a faster thing, just to put them under pressure, make sure I'm getting through. I'm tapping them a little bit, not hard, but just enough. And you'll see them slowly develop that speed of their response. I'm not talking about speed in the terms of like them beating me to something. I mean in the way how quick their reaction becomes. Mm-hmm. And you're looking for that defensive reaction to become quicker. And they're using the actual techniques. So, for instance, they're using Kwansao, or they're using they're using Tandar or something. So you're looking for those responses to start coming out naturally. And then we take it through into Chi Sao. And we then develop that, and I want to see those hands start to come out. So you actually want to see some development of some actual technique. Some stuff I watch, and they go a bit too fast, and then it just looks like really poor boxing, because they're not doing boxing and they're not doing Wing Chun. They're kind of like just trying to do an amalgamation of both. Mm-hmm. So for us, we don't want to see that. What we want to see is we want to see those hands come out. So I'd rather you went slower in a free Chi Sao, and actually we're helping each other more, and developed and seeing like I say, Kwansao, Tandar, Gan,
double hands, right? Like
and see the cooperation between the hands. So one hand's doing one thing, one hand's doing the other. You want to see those things. I want to see the structure develop. And as that does, then naturally you'll get a progression. So for instance, like if me and you were training together, as we keep going, you're going to push me that little bit further, and that little bit further, and that little bit further, and I'm going to do the same for you. So you'll get two guys that have been training together for years, and they'll just be going all out on each other in the end, and it ends up going from Chi Sao, and then we sort of go. Sometimes we put the head guards on and we put the gloves on, and I'll let them open up on each other a little bit. But I'll try whenever I start to see it going sloppy.
Okay.
I'll end it and say, look, stop, cool off 2 seconds, go back to it. But try and use those techniques. Make sure you're using the techniques, because otherwise you're just counterproductive to what you're doing, And then obviously as they get into higher levels, a lot of my students aren't really there at the moment. We're still working on the stuff, but in the Gary Lam system, we introduce kicking in the level 2. Okay. So the reason being is very logical, actually, because I was a bit perplexed by it. I went over there. I said, we don't do kicking then. He said, no, it's not until level 2. And I thought, that's a bit strange. And he said, well, the thing is, he said, if you're not stable on 2 legs, why would you take a leg off the floor? And straight away I thought, okay, that makes perfect sense. if you're not fully structured and balanced on both legs, you take a leg off the floor, you've just taken 50% of your balance away straight away. You've just taken 50% of your stability away. So it was just logical straight away the moment he said it. And then when I come back, I had the same question off of my students. They were like, "Oh, do we not do kicking?" I was like, "Yeah, we do, but not until level 2." And you see the disappointment in their faces, but actually, as I've got a few students that are at the end of level 1 now, and they are they're on that they fully understand that reasoning now. They're sort of like, "Oh yeah, I totally understand," and their structure's developed now, is strong, so they're sort of getting to that stage where they could be introduced towards kicking soon. And so for us, that's the way the system's set. And that, Gary's logic is Sifu Lam's logic is very, very good. And you just look and think, how long did he spend figuring this system out and setting it out in this order? Because it's ordered as well. It gives you the right thing at the right time.
Wow.
And I can't speak highly enough of the system, because it's enabled me to develop the skill that I have developed. And by all means, I'm nowhere. I'm not there yet. But I can see the path, I can see the road, and I can see how to get there. And the drills and the system enable you to do that. So it really, for me, it was a massive revelation. But yeah, so that's kind of like the way that we operate in terms of sparring. I know other schools like to get straight in there very quickly, and each have their own logic for it.
And then others don't do it at all. Like, the club I'm at, we don't spar, we don't gloves. Like there's nothing
wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. At the end of the day, as long as you're doing the chi sao, you're developing that reflex. So, like I say, over in Gary's, we very rarely, you don't really see much sparring going on. A lot of it is concentrating on the chi sao. So,
I shouldn't say that. I think years ago the club had it part of the curriculum, but I think it's kind of been slowly phased out. Whether it's liability, I'm not exactly sure, or just the type of club that is run right now. So yeah,
like anything, a lot of the time it has to do with the Sifu's current sort of abilities as well. In the previous lineage I was in, when I first started, we'd done a lot of kicking, and then the teacher he broke his ankle, and ever since that, afterwards, the kicking slowly got phased out because he wasn't able to do it as much. So his focus wasn't. He didn't do it on purpose, but it just wasn't focused on that. He focused more on the hand technique then. Because, he wasn't going to do that, and I think that's just natural. So sometimes that happens for that reason.
Totally.
Injury.
Yeah, it makes total sense. Yeah. So, another one or two questions. I don't want to keep you. I could talk to you all day, but
no, I'm not bothered. Don't worry. You get me on Wing Chun. I said I could keep talking all day. So,
levels. Like, I haven't dug deep. I think I mentioned to you previously. I was actually looking at training there years ago, kind of doing full-time training, because there's a couple places, Hong Kong, LA. Wasn't totally sure at the time to commit to it, and could I make it work, and reached out. I think that's how close I got. I think I was mentioning to you, but I didn't really dig into the system. We've talked about it quite a bit. Do you want to just kind of do a quick overview, because you're talking about levels, and like to like belt levels? But
well, no. So in the previous lineage I was in, we had a sash system. So like a belt system. So you'd have a red, green, brown, and black, and then there was obviously like
degrees.
You get little ribbons for each of which meant like red 1, red 2, red 3. In Gary's system, we don't have that. There's no formal gradings as such. So you don't. It's not like here stand you in front of the class and you have to perform. And the reason being is that because it's only a snapshot. A grading is only a snapshot, and Gary, Sifu Gary, he doesn't do that. What he'll do is he'll watch you, and he'll judge you, and like I say, he moves you on when he feels you're ready to move on to the next technique. So the way it works in that sort of thing is, if he feels like you're not ready, you won't get the certification. So you'll only be given the certification when he's ready, when he feels like you've got that point. And the guys over there, for instance, like in the level 1, they spend, I think it's about 2 years to do the level 1. You can do it quicker. Some guys will do it quicker, but it's about 2 years. Now, the level 1, you could say at that point you would have done loads of empty hand drills, loads of hand drills. You would have also done the wooden dummy, Sealam Tao, Chum Cube, UG. So that encompasses the level 1. So it is a very, very deep system. Most people will take longer than that. 2 years, I think, is probably the shortest amount of time that you could do it in. You can do it more condensed if you go as an intensive student, because then you're in the backyard environment and the school. But that's the level 1. Level 2 is that's more. So at that level, we start looking at. Gary's got a better analogy at this. Is sort of say, level 1 is sort of like learning to sort of drive the car, and then they say level 2 is like learning how to fix the car when it goes wrong. And then level 3 is like learning how to race the car. So it's, you're no longer, you don't necessarily need to be a safe driver anymore. You're a bit like it's like when you first pass your driving test, you're a little bit robotic and a little bit rigid. Sure. And that's kind of like what the level 1 is. You've got the drills, you understand it all, but you're still in that sort of basic stage. Level 2 is where we start talking about feeling and control. So we're looking for that the body's natural reflex to start sort of happening a bit more. So you're looking for more of that touch sensitivity, that reflex, the body to coordinate and cooperate with itself. And in the level 2, that's where you learn the the long pole, the dragon pole is taught at that point. So that's that. And then the level 3 is the coach certification. So that's the coach level. So that's Sifu level. And that's more, it is very heavily based on the fighting philosophy, strategy, coaching techniques. But there's some high level skill drills that we talk about. And there's quite a lot of skills. We talk about high level. We talk about the little bits that sort of, from his experience, from his fighting experience, that he passes on to you. And we also we learn the Bar Cham Do at that stage as well. So Gary's system's quite not unique, because there's quite a lot of lineages that do the similar sort of thing. But we learn to fight knife to knife. So we learn the forms. And then we actually learn how to fight each other with the knives and against the poles as well. When we do pole to pole, I think that was something that was like, wow, this is different, because the guy's actually coming at you with a pole and he's going to hit you.
Yeah, no doubt.
And it's kind of like a fight or flight. I've got to do that. I've got to stop it. And it really does make you focus. And you have to sort of. Again, it's another thing. It's getting rid of fear. You're losing that sort of idea. So it makes you actually a little bit more, you're a bit more dominant of the situation. You become a little bit more. I don't want to say aggressive, because I don't mean in terms like you're not raging or nothing like that. But you're very controlling and calm. So you're calm and you're controlled, but you're going to control that situation. So. Gary's very, Sifu Gary's system is very, very importantly set out like that. If you the problem is that some lineages, they start to do the Bar Cham Do too early, and you end up with problems because of that, because their hand techniques aren't at the right stage. They haven't developed the coordination. The hands don't cooperate with each other properly. So there's a lot of reasons why he's put it in that way. And then of course the level 4. Which is the last level. There's not many people out there with that. So I think there's only 3 in the world with that certification. They for that level, that is is more to do with the. I don't know whether you've read into it at all, but Sifu Gary has a 5-element system. He talks about the 5 elements,
Okay.
and that's got a deeper sort of. It's got a deeper understanding, a deeper meaning there. So there's a lot of that brought into it. More high level skills, more fighting experience, and you do a lot more Chi-San with him at that stage as well. But it's very difficult. I've tried Chi-San with him several times. We touch hands while we're out there quite a lot, but never with him actually really going for it, because you can't even stand there for a second. You're flying into the neighbor's bush or something.
That's amazing. I mean, like, just back to it. I mean, I've seen it on YouTube or some of his videos he puts up. He's pushing guys against those. What are they? Are they actually mattresses or?
Yeah, they're mattresses wrapped with tarpaulin. So he's got some proper trampoline crash mats in the school. So like authentic ones. I've actually got 2 mattresses in my school. I have 2 mattresses layered up with they're wrapped with like a banner sign, with the Gary Lam logo on.
Nice.
So I went for that sort of approach. In the UK, we can't train. I try to replicate a backyard environment, but unfortunately, it'd be nice if we could train. I think like today or a few days we would have been able to train outside. The rest of the time it's raining, so we don't have that luxury. But LA is always sunny, and so they have that. And yeah, that training that's very good as well, because it starts to make you think about moving your opponent, actually driving them backwards, and so that's another thing that he has going for his system that's very important. So we enjoy that. It's always fun to get thrown into the mats by him and stuff like that. But another thing I'll add about that, because we get a lot of comments about that sort of thing. They look at the Gary, they look at Sifu Gary, and he's he's a tall, big guy. And he's broad shoulders. He's a very sort of big guy. But so what they try to do is, a lot of people, they look and they think that that's him being muscular, that he's pushing guys around. And the funny thing is, you have to feel it to sort of be able to understand it. But there is no muscular power in that at all. That is all just pure energy just coming. And, the thing is, if you look back, I don't know if you probably might have seen it on YouTube. I think you can find it. There's the Science of Infighting, which was done by Wang and it's like an old documentary sort of thing. You can find it on YouTube. It's an intro. I recommend it for anyone to watch. So the Science of Infighting.
Okay, the Science of Infighting, sure.
A very interesting sort of documentary, probably about 45 minutes. But you'll see Sifu Gary in that. He's this tall, very very skinny guy, and that was actually his fighting weight. So I asked him. I said, "Oh, when was this?" And I think at the time he was early to late 20s, he's in his 20s, early 30s at most. And that was his fighting weight. So he was doing that to people back then. And it's only, as you get older, like we do, we just sort of like, I sort of said to him before, I said, do you have to use the muscle? Are you using muscle at all? He goes, no, it's all structure. It comes from the ground. So and actually, if you try to use the muscle, you just gas out so quickly. That's the joy of training full time, is that, if you're training with you for 10, 15 minutes, we could both use energy and be burning energy, and we get away with it. But when you train for 3-4 hours, there's no energy left. All you've got left in your tank is structure. That's it. So it means that as we keep progressing, we learn to just use our structure, because there's nothing left. You can't do nothing else. So that's it. So that's important.
Mm-hmm. It's amazing. Yeah, I mean, wow. Lots of good experiences, I'm sure, and lots of learning. Hey, so
yeah.
1 or 2 more. Yeah, I know. I don't want to keep going on, but what, like, date-ish? When did you first go out to LA? Like, when was that?
So I met Sifu Gary in 2016 up at in the UK. There's a branch school up the first one in the UK was Sifu John Lobb. So I don't know whether you would have seen him on YouTube. he puts quite a lot of videos out there, some very good stuff.
Yeah.
I at the time, I think I'd been watching some DVDs, and I just happened to Google,
Cool.
Gary Lam into the search engine, and John Lobb's Sifu John's post popped up saying that he was going to be there, and I think it was only 2 days' time. And so I quickly phoned up Sifu John, and I said, John, have you got any tickets left? And he said, yeah, definitely. So I spoke to one or two of my Sihing, and they said, we'll come up for the first day. And I said to my wife, look, it's 2 days. And she had family up in that part of the UK. So I said, can you ring your nan and can we stay there for the night? So off we went, and we flew up to it's around Liverpool area in the north of England. So we flew up there, and I watched the seminar for 2 days, and I thought, this guy's amazing. He's really, really knowledgeable, great stuff. But of course, it was a bit of a pipe dream, as it were, to think about going out to LA. I've got 2 young children, a wife. I just, it wasn't going to be feasible. So I carried on training, and I think in 2017 I headed out. I headed out to LA because I got it was late 2017 actually, because I got I think we had, if I remember rightly, I think we had a death in the family, and my wife kind of knew I wanted to do it, and I think everyone just said to me, look, you got to go do it, just do it. So I didn't need telling twice. I think by the time they had said that, I'd already booked the flight, and I'd already booked him with Gary, so that was it. I was gone. And then I think last year alone, I spent 3 or 4 months out of the country. And then the year before, I spent nearly 6 months out of the country. So
wow.
I think I tallied it up last week, and I think I've spent 9 months living with
kind of on a deep dive there. Hey, just going full in.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, like I say, when you go out to LA, it's a lovely place, but everyone always says to me, have you been here? Have you been there in LA? And I'm like, no, I've been to the backyard, and I've been to a couple of restaurants. I visited Venice Beach once, and I've been up to the Hollywood side, and that's it. That's my So I spent 8 months or something, or 9 months out in LA, and I think that's the biggest amount of stuff I've seen. And
that's funny.
But because the concentration when I'm out there is training.
Of course.
I'm not there for a holiday as such. I'm there just for me, it's work. And,
of course. Yeah.
And so I push myself as hard as I can while I'm there.
Yeah.
And because the thing is, I know otherwise I'll regret it when I come home. I'll get home and I think I should have worked a little bit harder. I should have pushed myself. So yeah, that was that. But yeah, so 2017, and I opened my school in 2018. I opened my school.
Nice.
So we've only been going 2 years now. We've only been going, but we've apart from the current situation, we've gone strength to strength.
Yeah.
And that's been amazing, to see something develop from. I mean, I think we started in a little hall, and then we didn't have enough students, so we ended up going back to. Luckily, my family have a hotel, so I ended up using the wedding marquee, and we were trading in there for a while, and then we ended up getting a shop unit, and we rented a big unit, and so yeah, it's slowly built up, and I'm now teaching in London 1 day a week as well. Not currently with the situation, but I teach in London 1 day a week, which is about 2 hours from where I live. So okay. I just because I want the spread of the Gary Lam Wing Chun, I want other people in the UK to see it. The 2 other schools in the UK, so you've got Sifu John Lobb and Sifu Dean in Nottingham. There's so he's up in the north, and they're both sort of like fairly, I say close. They're sort of 3-4 hours away from each other, but they're both about 6 hours away from me. So they're both my Sihing, and I wish they were a little bit closer, because actually, to be honest, it'd be nice to go and train with someone. On those higher levels to help push along.
Yeah,
it's difficult. So we don't get any time to train with each other. I was trying to go up there this year to train with Dean. Unfortunately, with this situation, it doesn't look like that's going to happen. But yeah, London's only 2 hours away from where I live. I'm literally on the south coast. I mean, I live right by the water, so so for me, we're spaced out nicely enough that we don't sort of tread on each other's toes in any way, shape, or form. But
so if people are in the south, how do they connect with you? Like, or in London, like what? Here's a question for you. Yeah, how do people connect with you, Lewis?
So you mean how do people find me, or how do people?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so I mean, people find me through Facebook. So Gary Lam Wing Chun Bournemouth, or I've got Gary Lam Wing Chun London as page. I have the websites. My telephone number's available, WhatsApp and stuff like that. So if anyone's ever in these areas and they want to come and train, we're open you're more than welcome to come along and just train. We're quite an open lineage. We're just there to sort of. Again, it's one of the nice things, about Sifu Lam is I've never, we're not there bad mouthing any other lineage. We're just there to sort of like show what we do, and if someone's got something that they can show us, and we're happy to be receptive as well to learn as well. So for me, I'm on that sort of learning thing where if you can show me something, then that's great. Exchange of information is always good. So. And that needs to happen more and more across the lineages. I think people are so happy doing this tit for tat thing, and oh, my Sifu done this and my Sifu done this, and it doesn't really matter what happened. The history of Wing Chun's great, but we don't try to concentrate on that. We want to concentrate on what the development of Wing Chun is. How can we sort of like take this great thing and move it onwards, or So that's good. But so like I say, if any of your viewers and followers, if they ever want to meet up, then by all means, and yourself, like I say as well, if you're ever in the UK,
I will definitely come visit.
Yeah, come visit, because it'd be great. Like I say, I mean, we got a couple of guys that come over from Switzerland last year, and they come over the guy come over for 2 months. And he just trained with us solidly for 2 months. He was there. He was just here to study English. So for him, he was happy. And
that's great.
It was great. He was from a totally different lineage. I think he'd done more Yat, and and it was great just to sort of to see the differences in what you do. And you're sort of like, okay, like I watch him do his form and his dummy, and I was like, okay, this is how we do ours, and just to see and what his explanations for why does he do it like this and why do I do it like that, and that's great. To be able to exchange information like that is
totally,
and it's strange as well, because you start talking to guys like we're talking now. We've not met before, and we're talking about something we have in common, so that's great as well. So it's amazing. It's an amazing thing.
Yeah, and thanks so much for doing this. I totally appreciate it. I know you're open to Wing Chun, and I'm happy you're here chatting. One of my last questions is, what would a tip be, just kind of to give to either beginner, intermediate, or advanced? You can do one or like all of them. But I mean, just I know it's kind of a broad stroke question.
So my biggest tip or advice is, I would say for most people is, you'll hear a lot of people will say, "Oh, a technique doesn't work," or it's a bad technique, or that's no good. The thing is, what I would say to most people is it might not work at your current level, or your current understanding. So persevere with it. Try and get a deeper it's like, don't rubbish something before you've really fully understood it. And if you feel like you do fully understand it, then that's fine. But for me, I haven't come across a bad technique in Wing Chun. I executed techniques badly myself, and I remember turning around to Sifu and saying, I don't like this technique, I can't get it to work. And then he'd do it and he'd go, it's worked for me, it's fine, I can do it, you can't. And when he said that to me, I thought, yeah, you're right. He can do it. He's not the one with the problem, but I can't, I can't do it. So there was something I wasn't understanding about it, or I wasn't just getting it, or the hands and the body just don't, sometimes they just do not, the mind, the hands, the body, it just doesn't cooperate with itself. So a lot of it is, don't go for well, I mean, that goes into the same tip, really. Don't go for like a massive range of knowledge. Just really try to specialize in each area first. Like, you know, the skill really is in the development of being able to discipline yourself, to focus to a job. You know, so if you're working tan, you know, or you're working Kwansao, just keep working it. Don't go off and start doing 20 different techniques. I mean, you know, we don't, in my school, the maximum I'll let them do in one night is 2 drills. So wow. when we're working in the school, we won't do more than 2 drills. That's it. There's 2 drills because what I want them to do is to focus on it and to get better at it. But if they only do 5-10 minutes of it and then they move straight on to something else, you know, what have they done it 20-30 times they've done the technique? It's not enough. You really got to keep going with it. So
I love that. Love it.
You know, you've got to focus, and that's what gives people skill. So yeah, if they can do that, then that's great.
Awesome. That's awesome. Yes. Again, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for inviting me on.
I won't hold you up anymore here, but thanks for dropping in. And yeah, I'll definitely take you up on your offer into coming to see you when things open up, obviously. Yeah,
when it all opens up again. Yeah. Like I say, I mean, my trip is out to LA in January, but I think I was reading today, I think the president has announced that no one's allowed to go out there till the 31st of December now. So so it looks like my trip is booked on the 3rd of January. So I'm a little bit like, oh, wow, this is a little bit close for comfort. But, you know, hopefully everything opens back up and all the guys get to, you know, and the girls get back to training, because I know everyone is literally just, you know, they're clawing at the door just to get back out. Just want to get back out and do it. And I know if all your followers are like my students, I get text messages nearly every day just saying, oh, you know, have you heard anything? Is there any more going on? I was like, well, you're watching the news the same time as me. You know, we just don't know when this is gonna things. But I hope everyone manages to get back to training soon.
Yes, totally agree. All right, thank you again.
No worries. Thank you ever so much.
Thank you, Lewis.